Picture this. A couple in their early 30s sits across from each other at a nice restaurant. They've just had a good meal, a glass of wine, a rare conversation that didn't involve bills or kids. Then the server walks over and quietly places the leather folder on the table between them. In that tiny moment, the air changes. He feels his stomach tighten. She looks at the bill, then at him, then away. It's only a few seconds, but suddenly this is not about pasta and wine anymore. It's about equality, money, pride, and what their relationship really is versus what they like to say it is. He reaches for the bill, almost on autopilot. He's been taught since his teens that a good man pays. But at the back of his mind, another voice whispers, "Didn't we just talk about splitting things? Didn't she say she wants everything to be 50-50? He doesn't say any of this out loud. He just pulls out his card, pays, and cracks a joke about eating instant noodles for the rest of the week. She notices the tension, even if he hides it behind a joke. Part of her likes that he pays. It makes her feel cared for, chosen, like she matters. Another part of her doesn't want to feel like she owes him anything, or like she's being judged for what she earns. So she smiles, offers a soft, "I can transfer you later if you want," hoping he'll say, "Don't worry about it." He does. But something small and sharp stays stuck between them. Now zoom out from that restaurant. Think about the rent, the vacations, the groceries, the surprise emergencies. One person saying, "We're a team, we're equal," and the other quietly carrying the heavier financial backpack while pretending it doesn't hurt. Or a woman carrying most of the emotional and domestic load, while hearing that everything is fair because the money is technically split. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of modern couples are trying to live two scripts at the same time. On the surface, they talk about equality, partnership, we're not traditional, we're modern. But the moment the bill arrives, not just at the restaurant, but in life, all the old expectations rush back into the room. Who pays more? Who sacrifices more? Who is allowed to be tired? Who is allowed to lean on the other without feeling guilty? The part no one warns you about is this. It's not the big wedding vows or the hashtag about equality that break most couples. It's the repeated silent moments when the bill arrives, financial, emotional, or practical, and both people feel like they're giving more, getting less, and not being fully seen. Over time, those tiny moments stop being about money at all. They become proof, in each person's mind, of who really cares, who is really loyal, who is secretly selfish. And once you've both started keeping score, love slowly turns into a quiet, cold war. If you look closely at that tiny moment when the bill hits the table, you can already see the whole pattern hiding underneath. On the surface, it's just one person paying and the other saying thank you. But underneath, you've got something like an invisible contract that was never fully talked through, only assumed. Both people think they're being fair. Both people think they're the one compromising more. And both quietly feel the other doesn't get it. In a lot of modern relationships, there's a double script running at the same time. The first script is the equality script. We're a team. We both work. We both contribute. We make decisions together. It sounds fair, intelligent, progressive. This is what they say to friends, post online, maybe even believe on a good day. The second script is the traditional script that lives deeper in the nervous system. This one wasn't chosen. It was absorbed. From childhood dinners, from movies, from watching how parents and relatives interacted. In that script, the man is expected to be the solid provider who doesn't flinch when money comes up. The woman is expected to be understanding, supportive, and not too demanding, especially if he's under pressure. Or in other families, the woman is the one who quietly stretches every dollar, sacrifices her career, and takes care of everything at home while he focuses on work. When these two scripts collide, you get a very specific loop. On Monday, they talk like partners. On Friday, when the rent is due, they act like they're in a 1980s family drama. He feels pressure to step up like a man. She feels pressure to not be a burden, or to carry the home side, even if she's also working full-time. No one really designed this. It just runs in the background like old software. The first sign of this loop is silent scorekeeping. One person starts thinking, "I paid for this, this, and this. Do you even notice?" The other thinks, I handled this, and this for our life together. Do you appreciate it at all? On the outside, they might be joking about it. Looks like I'm the house ATM, he says with a smile that doesn't fully reach his. Looks like I'm your unpaid personal assistant, she jokes while folding laundry. But the humor is covering a growing resentment account that keeps collecting interest. The second sign is the gap between words and actions. They say, we're equal, but when something big happens, a job loss, a pregnancy, a move, a sick parent, they fall back into old roles without discussion. Maybe he assumes he must handle all the money stress and never show fear. Maybe she assumes she must handle all the emotional and logistical stress and never show anger. Then both feel alone inside the relationship, even as they're technically on the same side. This isn't just about personality or who's good or bad. It's about how they were wired by what they saw growing up. A man who watched his father get shamed for not earning enough might overcompensate by insisting on paying for everything, even when it quietly exhausts him. A woman who watched her mother be financially dependent and trapped might push for equality, but still feel guilty or unfeminine when she doesn't let a man pay. These inner conflicts don't disappear just because you understand feminism or modern masculinity in theory. Then you add defense mechanisms. When someone feels accused or inadequate, they rarely say, I feel small and scared right now. They say things like, you're so ungrateful, or you're obsessed with money, or you just want a sponsor, or you just want a maid. Underneath, what they really mean is, I'm terrified you don't value what I bring. But fear doesn't come out sounding soft, it comes out sounding sharp. On top of that, men and women often use different emotional languages around money and effort. For a lot of men, money is deeply tied to identity, competence, and dignity. For many women, money is deeply tied to safety, options, and not being stuck in a powerless role. So when they argue about who pays, they're not just arguing about cash. They're arguing about, am I enough? Versus, am I safe? And they don't even know it. So you end up with this painful loop. Both say they believe in equality, both are still acting from old scripts, both feel misunderstood, and both are building a secret internal case file against the other. He thinks, you want equality until it costs me. She thinks, you want equality until I stop doing things for free. No one is purely the villain, and no one is purely the victim. They're just stuck in a system they never consciously sat down to define. Let's stay with his side for a moment, not because he's more important, but because his inner world is often the least translated. From the outside, it can look simple. He pays or he doesn't, he offers or he hesitates, he complains or he stays quiet. But inside, money is rarely just money. For a lot of men, it's a running scoreboard of, am I a real man or not? That started long before this relationship. Think about a guy in his early 30s, scrolling through his banking app in the bathroom with the door locked. His partner is in the living room, maybe watching a show or putting the kids to bed. He's not doing anything dramatic, just staring at the numbers on the screen. Rent, car payment, dinner last night, her birthday gift, the flights for their holiday. He swipes, calculates, feels that familiar tightness in his chest. Then he erases the worry from his face, opens the door, and walks out like nothing is wrong. On the outside, nothing happened. On the inside, he just had a private panic attack about whether he's allowed to be honest about how heavy this all feels. Many men grew up with a silent rule. If you can't provide, you are nothing. Their fathers may never have said the words out loud, but the message was clear in how stress exploded when money was tight, or how pride swelled when a bonus came in. Maybe he watched his dad carry everything and never ask for help, collapsing into sleep in front of the TV. Maybe he watched his father get mocked or disrespected when money was low. Either way, he learned that his worth is closely tied to his wallet, his job, his ability to take care of things. So when he hears modern language about equality, part of him agrees. He likes the idea of partnership. He doesn't want his partner to feel dependent or trapped. He believes, in theory, that both should contribute. But the older script inside him is still running. Real men don't split. Real men don't fuss about money. Real men don't say, I'm scared I can't keep up. This creates a quiet double bind. If he pays, he feels strain and may secretly resent that it's just expected. If he doesn't pay, or if he asks to split, he fears being seen as cheap, unromantic, or not man enough. He may even judge himself before she ever does. So he chooses what feels safer. Keep paying, keep quiet, keep joking, keep swallowing the fear. Then, when the pressure gets too high, it leaks out as sarcasm, distance, or sudden anger about some small expense that isn't really about that one item at all. Picture him on a weekend, walking through a supermarket with his partner. She casually drops a nicer bottle of wine into the cart, or an extra toy for the kids, or something small that we deserve after a long week. Rationally, he agrees. Emotionally, the calculator in his head is screaming. He doesn't want to be the controlling guy who says no to everything. So he forces a smile. Later that night, he snaps about something totally different, like the lights being left on or the heating bill. She thinks, "Why are you overreacting?" He doesn't even fully realize he's not arguing about electricity. He's arguing about feeling alone with the weight of the bill. Many men also carry a fear that they are being used, even if their partner isn't actually using them. If previous relationships or stories from friends taught him that some people say equality, but secretly expect a sponsor, he will be extra sensitive to unfairness. If he notices a pattern where he's paying for most big things while also hearing, "We should be equal," he may build a private case file in his head. He won't necessarily bring it up calmly. He'll just hold it until it spills out in one ugly, confused argument. Underneath the irritation, there is often something much softer. "I want to feel respected for what I give." When he works late, or takes a job he doesn't love because it pays more, or sacrifices his hobbies to cover more expenses, he isn't only tired. He's hoping it means something. That hope is rarely expressed out loud. Instead, it comes out as a quiet expectation. You should just see it. You should just know. When he doesn't feel that recognition, he starts telling himself a painful story. "You only care about what I bring, not about me." At the same time, many men are ashamed of their own limits. If he's struggling financially, he may hide it from his partner to protect his image as the stable one. When she later finds out and feels betrayed, he's confused. "I was trying to protect you from stress." He doesn't realize that what she needed wasn't a flawless provider, but an honest partner she could plan with. But to him, admitting, "I can't do this alone," feels like admitting, "I am failing as a man." In relationships where she earns more, another layer appears. He may be genuinely proud of her success and still feel secretly displaced. If he offers to contribute less because the numbers are obvious, he might feel like he's breaking that inner rule of manhood. If she insists on splitting equally even when she out-earns him, he might feel like there's no space to be vulnerable and say, "Can we adjust this for a while so I can breathe?" Either way, shame shows up. Shame of not matching her, shame of needing support, shame of not knowing how to talk about it without feeling small. Then there's the emotional bill. Many men are not only paying with money, they're also paying with silent endurance. They absorb comments about real men and "my friend's husband does this and that," and pretend it doesn't sting. They hear jokes online about bare minimum men and quietly wonder if their efforts count at all. They may react by withdrawing from the conversation entirely. "Whatever, I'll just handle my part and you handle yours." But that withdrawal doesn't make the pain disappear. It just freezes it deeper. When he finally explodes with something like, "You talk equality but expect me to pay for everything," it often comes out messily, in a tone that feels attacking. She hears entitlement or accusation. He feels desperate and cornered. What he often cannot say clearly is, "I want us to be a team, but I don't know how to carry both the old expectations and the new rules at the same time. I'm scared of failing you, and I'm scared of feeling used." This is the heart of his side of the double standard. It's not just that he wants to avoid paying. It's that he's living in a psychological tug-of-war between being the old kind of man who never complains and the new kind of partner who is supposed to be emotionally open, financially fair, and endlessly stable. No one trained him for this middle ground. So he's improvising, often badly, under the weight of a bill he doesn't know how to share without feeling like less. So let's flip the lens now and speak directly to the women listening, almost like handing you a translation device for his behavior. Because from the outside, it's very easy to interpret his reactions around money and equality in the worst possible way. If he pays and later seems tense, it can look like control. If he hesitates to pay or asks to split, it can look like stinginess or lack of commitment. If he shuts down when you bring up finances, it can look like immaturity. And yes, sometimes it is those things. But very often, what you're seeing is fear dressed up as distance, shame disguised as defensiveness. When he goes quiet about money, a lot of women read it as he doesn't care or he doesn't want to talk like a real partner. In his inner language, silence often means, I don't know how to say this without looking weak or failing you. He may be doing calculations in his head, beating himself up, rehearsing worst-case scenarios. The more stressed he feels, the less language he has. That's not an excuse. It's an explanation. It helps to know you're not always facing an uncaring man, but a man who was never taught how to talk about fear without losing status. When he cracks jokes about being the ATM, you might hear criticism or guilt tripping. You might feel, so, you don't actually want to do this for us? Inside, though, those jokes are often him asking, in the only way he knows, do you see me? Do you see that I'm trying? He doesn't know how to directly ask for gratitude or reassurance without feeling needy. So it comes out sideways. If your first response is only to defend yourself, I never asked you to pay for everything. You both miss the deeper need. He is asking if his efforts mean something in your eyes. When he suddenly blows up about a small purchase, a lot of women understandably think, wow, overreact much? On his side, the outburst is rarely about the one item. It's the overflow of months of swallowed anxiety. He has probably been telling himself, don't be controlling, don't be dramatic, just handle it. By the time he snaps, he's not only mad at the expense, he's mad at himself for not speaking sooner, mad at the situation, and scared of being trapped in a life where he never gets to exhale. Again, not an excuse for bad behavior, but the translation helps you see you're dealing with a pressure cooker, not a simple temper. When he asks to split or to adjust how expenses are handled, you might hear, he doesn't want to take care of me. He doesn't see me as special. In his language, what he may be trying to say is, I want this to be sustainable, and I don't want to secretly resent you. Many men don't want a dynamic where they pay everything and build a quiet wall of bitterness. They'd rather build a model where both contribute in a way that feels fair to both. But the conversation is so loaded, touching pride, romance, tradition, that it often gets derailed into, you just don't want to provide versus, you just want a free ride, when neither is actually true. Now let's reverse the translation device and hand it to him for a moment. Because women's behavior around money and equality is just as easy to misunderstand. When she brings up finances again and again, many men hear nagging, complaining, or nothing is ever enough for you. In her inner language, repetition usually means, I feel alone with this anxiety, and I don't know how else to make you take it seriously. She's not trying to attack your worth. She's trying to make sure she's not the only adult mentally holding the future together. When she wants to talk about fairness and equality, a lot of men feel accused. So I'm the bad guy now? But in her mind, fairness is about safety and dignity. If she's contributing financially, emotionally, and domestically, and it still feels like the invisible load is heavier on her side, she doesn't just feel tired. She feels invisible. That's why the sentence, it's not a big deal, can land like a slap. To you, it might truly feel small. To her, it's one more brick on a huge wall she carries without recognition. When she accepts that you pay and doesn't offer to split every time, it's easy to file that under taking advantage. Sometimes, yes, someone might be using you. But in many cases, she's reading your behavior as a love language. You insist on paying, you seem proud to do it, you never bring up stress. So she thinks, this is one way he shows love. At the same time, she might be giving in other currencies. Organizing your life, remembering birthdays, managing details, caring for the home, carrying emotional tension you rarely see. That doesn't erase the importance of financial fairness, but it explains why she might not automatically see money the same way you do. In her story, love and care have many forms, and financial contribution is only one of them. When she asks, can we talk about money? And you shut down or say, not now, she might feel instantly unsafe. Not because she expects you to have everything under control, but because secrecy around money often equals danger in her internal map. Maybe she's seen women in her family trapped because they didn't know the financial reality. Maybe she's been burned before by someone who hid debt. So your avoidance isn't just annoying, it can trigger deep panic. She's not necessarily saying, "You're failing." She's asking, "Can I trust that we're facing reality together?" When she wants some traditional gestures, a paid date, a thoughtful gift, a sense that you treat her sometimes, it's easy to label her as materialistic or contradictory. You want equality and still want me to pay? But often, what she's really asking for is not financial domination but emotional priority. Those moments signal, "I choose you, I invest in us, you are not just my roommate with benefits." If you only focus on the money part, you miss the emotional message riding on top of it. So here's the core translation. His language is often about respect, competence, and not wanting to feel like a walking wallet or a failing provider. Her language is often about safety, fairness, and not wanting to feel like a dependent child or unpaid service worker. When he pulls away from the money talk, she feels unsafe. When she presses the money talk, he feels disrespected. Both are protecting wounds that existed before they ever met each other. If you only listen at the surface level, who paid what, who mentioned what, whose side at the bill, you will keep fighting about numbers. If you listen one level down, "I want to feel respected, I want to feel safe," you start to see that you are arguing about needs that are actually compatible. A relationship can absolutely be a place where a man feels respected and a woman feels safe at the same time. But that only happens when both sides are willing to reveal the soft underbelly beneath their defensiveness. "I'm not trying to use you, I'm trying not to feel abandoned. And I'm not trying to control you, I'm trying not to feel like I don't matter." Here's where we have to get a little harsher, in a way that might sting but can also set you free if you let it land. Because "we believe in equality" sounds beautiful, but the way many couples live it is closer to emotional theater than reality. The first hard truth is this: you cannot run a relationship on equality slogans and unspoken traditional deals at the same time without someone slowly breaking inside. If you say, "We're a team, we share everything," but in practice one person is consistently carrying more of the financial or emotional weight, you don't have equality. You have a carefully decorated imbalance. Maybe he's paying most big bills while being told, "We're modern, this is 50-50. Maybe she's working, managing the house, and the mental load, while hearing, "We both contribute equally, stop complaining." The gap between the story and the reality is where resentment rots. The second hard truth: everyone loves the benefits of the old roles, but very few are willing to admit the costs. A lot of women still want to feel cherished with traditional gestures. Being taken out, being surprised, feeling like he can take care of things, sometimes. A lot of men still want the quiet loyalty and support that came with older roles. Someone who has their back, who understands their pressure, who doesn't weaponize their financial struggles. There is nothing wrong with wanting those things. The problem is when you want the benefits without owning the trade-offs. If you want a fully traditional provider, that usually came with him having more say in big financial decisions and you having less economic independence. If you want a fully equal partner, that usually means you cannot expect him to carry most of the financial burden, just because he's a man. Many couples are stuck trying to combine old benefits for me with new freedoms for me, and that math simply does not add up. The third hard truth: avoidance around money and contribution is not neutral. It is a form of quiet betrayal. When you know the current arrangement is unfair for you, and you say nothing for years while secretly resenting your partner, you are betraying yourself and them. When you know your partner is drowning, financially, emotionally, or practically, and you pretend not to see it because it's convenient for you, you are also betraying the relationship. Betrayal doesn't only happen with affairs and big lies. It also happens when you let the other person keep paying a bill, literal or emotional, while you tell yourself, "They've got it, it's fine," even though you see the strain in their eyes. The fourth hard truth: a lot of couples use double standards without noticing. Many men expect traditional loyalty and support, someone who believes in them, stands by them in failure, but want to keep full modern freedom, minimal accountability, and no uncomfortable conversations about money. Many women expect modern independence and say, "I don't need a man to provide for me," but still quietly judge a man as less attractive or less worthy if he can't pay for most things. Neither side likes hearing this. But if you look honestly, you might recognize places where you demand more maturity, generosity, and consistency from your partner than you regularly give yourself. Here's a smaller, sharper truth that sits underneath all of this. Both sides often judge the other by outcomes and judge themselves by intentions. If he forgets to transfer money or pay something on time, she sees an outcome: you don't care, you're irresponsible. He sees intention: I care so much, I'm just overwhelmed. If she spends on something he thinks is unnecessary, he sees outcome: you're careless. She sees intention: I wanted to treat us, I've been exhausted, I'm trying to create joy. When both keep insisting, if you really loved me, you'd see my intention, while refusing to see the others, the relationship becomes two prosecution lawyers arguing their own case and ignoring the defense. Now let's get really blunt in a warm way. Some of you are using equality like a shield to avoid giving more. We should split everything, can sometimes hide. I don't want to feel obligated to show up for you when you're weak. You should be independent, can sometimes hide. I don't want to stretch myself to be there for you in a way that inconveniences me. On the other side, some of you are using tradition as a weapon to demand sacrifices you don't intend to honor. A real man provides can sometimes mean, I want the comfort of being taken care of without the discomfort of looking at my own spending or contribution. A good wife supports can sometimes mean, I want you to take on more emotional and domestic labor than I'm willing to acknowledge. Underneath the selfishness, though, there is usually fear and old pain. Someone who clings to you must pay for everything may have grown up watching chaos, poverty, or instability, and now equates generosity with safety. Someone who clings to we split everything always, no exception, may have watched parents or friends get financially used and now equates generosity with being exploited. When you're scared, it's easy to turn a personal fear into a moral rule. Good partners do X, bad partners do Y. That feels safer than admitting, I'm terrified of going back to that place in my past. So where does responsibility actually land? Men do need to own the ways they hide behind silence, jokes, and withdrawal instead of having honest, vulnerable conversations about money and limits. They need to own the damage done when they let resentment build, then explode and blame everything on women these days, instead of owning their part in creating this dynamic. They need to face the fact that being a man in a modern relationship is not just about paying. It's also about emotionally showing up, planning together, and allowing themselves to be seen as imperfect without shutting down. Women, on their side, need to own the ways they sometimes benefit from unspoken traditional perks while publicly insisting on equality. They need to own the damage done when they dismiss his financial fears as excuses, mock his struggles as not man enough, or weaponize comparison, other men do more, instead of engaging in honest negotiation. They need to face the fact that if they want to be true partners, that includes uncomfortable financial responsibility and accountability, not just emotional insight and moral high ground. And both have to own the shared responsibility, defining their real agreement instead of acting out an invisible one. You can't keep copying your parents' model, rejecting parts of it, borrowing parts of modern ideas, and hope it magically becomes fair. If you don't sit down and write your own rules together, you will live inside a half-updated operating system that crashes every time a big bill arrives. If you've recognized pieces of yourself in all this, the goal is not to feel guilty, it's to get curious and practical. Because this isn't fixed by one dramatic fight or one perfect speech. It's changed by small, repeated moves that slowly bring your real agreement closer to the story you tell about your relationship. One of the most powerful things you can do is retire the invisible contract and write a visible one together. Not in a cold legal way, but in a we are building our own model way. Sit down with a notebook or a shared document when things are calm, not in the middle of a fight. Each of you writes, separately at first, answers to a few questions. What do I currently think is fair financially between us? What do I actually do and pay for right now? What feels heavy for me? What feels like a gift I genuinely want to give? What am I afraid to say about money or contribution? Then you swap and read without interrupting. That silence, just reading, is often the first honest moment you've had about this topic in years. From there, you start to design an agreement that fits who you really are, not who Instagram says you should be. Maybe that means you split everyday expenses in proportion to income rather than exactly 50-50ths. Maybe it means one person covers more money while the other takes on a clearly recognized share of domestic and emotional labor, written down so it doesn't disappear into, that's just what you do. Maybe it means alternating who pays for date nights, or having one no price pressure date a month where you agree on a small budget and focus on connection, not performance. The point is not to copy any standard, but to be explicit. This is what we're choosing together with open eyes. For men listening, a practical shift that changes everything is moving from silent hero to honest partner. That means sharing the numbers, not as a lecture, but as an invitation. Instead of, "You're spending too much," try, "Can we look at our monthly picture together? I've been feeling pressure and I don't want to end up resenting you." Show the bank app, the bills, the forecast. Not to scare her, but to let her into the reality you've been carrying alone. And then pause and ask, "What do you feel when you see this? What ideas do you have?" You're not less of a man for needing a co-strategist. You're more of a partner. Another shift. Ask clearly for the recognition you've been hoping she would magically guess. You don't have to dramatize. You can say, "When I cover this, I really want to feel that you see it. It would mean a lot to me if sometimes you said it directly or surprised me in your own way." That may feel vulnerable and awkward, but it's far less damaging than months of sarcasm and distance. For women listening, one of the most healing moves is to separate financial reality from moral judgment in your mind. If he brings up limits or asks to change how you handle expenses, don't instantly translate that into "he doesn't care" or "he's not a real man." Take it as a sign of trust. He is letting you see where he's human. Instead of saying, "Other men do more," try, "Thank you for telling me. Let's look at what we can adjust together. Here is what I need to feel safe, and here is what I'm willing to take more responsibility for." Bring your own numbers, your own ideas. Step into the conversation as someone who shapes the solution, not just evaluates it. It also helps to deliberately balance the currencies of giving. If you know he's been carrying more financially, find specific ways to lighten his emotional or practical load that you can sustain. Not as repayment, but as partnership. Planning a low-cost date he doesn't have to organize, taking over a task he hates for a while, or even just saying, "I see how hard you're working for us, and I don't take it for granted." If you know she's carrying more of the unseen labor, scheduling, reminders, emotional tone, step in consciously. Offer, "What's one thing on your plate this week that I can fully own?" And then actually own it without being chased. As a couple, you can build simple rituals that keep the topic from becoming a bomb. A 10 to 20-minute money and load check-in once a week, no phones, no TV, where the rule is, first we both share how we feel, then we talk about numbers. Not a 3-hour interrogation, just a short meeting where you ask, on a scale from 1 to 10, how heavy does our arrangement feel for you right now? And, is there one small adjustment that would help this feel fairer? Small adjustments made early are so much cheaper than silent resentment paid later. You can also create a no fixing, just listening rule for some conversations. If she says, "I feel scared when I don't know what's happening with our money," your job in that moment is not to explain or defend. It's to show you heard, so when I avoid the topic, it makes you feel like you're walking in the dark. That sounds really stressful. If he says, "I feel like I'm only valuable when I'm earning more," her job is not to argue, it's to mirror. "So you're worried that if you can't keep up, I'll see you as less." That must feel heavy. Once both feel understood, then you move to problem solving. Finally, agree together that you will not mock each other's fears, even if you don't share them. You can challenge them gently, you can negotiate around them, but you don't joke in ways that humiliate. For him, that means letting go of "you're just being dramatic" when she worries about safety. For her, that means dropping "be a man" jokes when he opens up about limits. You want your relationship to be the place where your deepest insecurities around money and worth are held carefully, not used as weapons when you're angry. No one got a clear manual for this. Most of us learned about love and money the messy way, watching our parents argue behind half-closed doors, hearing comments like, "We can't afford that," said with a tone that meant much more than the price of something, feeling the tension in the air when the credit card bill arrived. We then grow up, say words like equality, partnership. We're not like that generation, and yet the old ghosts still sit quietly at our dinner table. If you recognize yourself here, it doesn't mean you're doomed or fake or selfish. It means you're human. It means you're trying to build a new kind of relationship with tools you inherited from an older world. You were told, "Be independent," and also told, "A real man provides," or "A good woman supports." You were told, don't depend on anyone, and also told, find someone who will take care of you. No wonder so many couples feel like they're failing. The instructions themselves are contradictory. The good news is this: you are allowed to put those inherited scripts on the table, examine them together, and choose what you keep. You don't have to copy a fully traditional model if it makes one of you disappear. You don't have to copy a rigid 50-50 model if it crushes one person under numbers that don't match reality. You can create something that's actually yours. Messy at first, adjusted over time, but honest. That honesty will sometimes feel uncomfortable. Saying, I can't carry this alone anymore, or I feel guilty when you pay for everything, or I feel invisible when we call this equal but my load is heavier, is not pleasant. Your voice may shake. Your partner might react defensively at first. That doesn't mean you should have stayed silent. It means you're both being stretched into a more grown-up kind of love where conflict is not a sign of failure but a doorway to clarity. Here's the quiet hope underneath all the harsh truths. Most people in relationships like yours are not trying to hurt each other on purpose. They're trying to protect themselves from old pain with the only strategies they know. When you start translating each other's behavior, seeing his fear of failure where you used to see only stinginess, seeing her fear of being abandoned where you used to see only demands, you stop fighting a monster and start facing a wounded human who loves you, even if imperfectly. That doesn't mean you should stay in any relationship no matter what. If there is abuse, financial control that traps you, constant humiliation, threats, or violence, the healthiest form of equality may be leaving, getting support, and rebuilding a life where you are safe. No amount of empathy cancels the need for boundaries. Understanding why someone is broken never obligates you to let them break you. But in many relationships that are not abusive, just tired and tangled, there is so much space for things to soften. Not into a fairy tale, not into some story where money is never stressful, but into a partnership where both of you know we are allowed to be human-sized. We can talk about bills without turning them into weapons. We can experiment with new agreements and update them as life changes. We can both ask, does this still feel fair? Without being accused of being ungrateful or weak. You may not fix everything in a week. You may stumble, overcorrect, argue again. That's okay. What matters is the direction, away from pretending and silent scorekeeping, toward clearer language and shared responsibility. Away from "you're the problem" and toward "this pattern is the problem, and we're both inside it." If you heard yourself in this story, maybe this is not a verdict but an invitation. An invitation to stop performing equality while living imbalance. To stop carrying the bill alone in your head. To choose one conversation, just one, where you tell the truth a little more than you usually do, and listen a little deeper than you usually can. Even if your voice shakes, even if your pride resists, because underneath the fear and the numbers, there is still that simple wish you both had at the beginning, to not go through life alone.